I'm Julie Pace for the Associated Press, joined by Dr. Christina Romer, White House economist. And Dr. Romer, today we've got the new unemployment numbers out, 10.2%. This is higher than a lot of economists were predicting. Is this higher than the White House was predicting?
You know, the president has for several months said that realistically he thought the unemployment rate could go over 10%. It's always a disappointment when it actually happens, but it is something that we knew we were in a terrible recession, and it really is just a stark reminder of how much work remains to be done to get people back to work.
And psychologically, double-digit unemployment, is there concern that this might keep employers from adding jobs, from not cutting employees, from keeping consumers from spending when they see this number?
You know, I think, again, people have understood this was a very severe recession, that we had just faced shocks like we hadn't seen since the Great Depression. I think they also know that we are working aggressively to try to turn it around. And so, you know, certainly last week we got the numbers that finally the economy was growing again. I'd also say in today's numbers, right, what we do see, for example, is that temporary services employment had jumped up some almost 34,000. That's often the first sign of firms kind of dipping their toe back into hiring people. And, you know, that may be something that could give people a little bit of confidence that maybe even the healing of the labor market could be starting.
And we saw in the elections last week that jobs, the economy, that's what all these voters were talking about. And we did get good news that, as you said, the economy is starting to grow. But at what point do people in their own lives need to start seeing job creation in their towns and their neighborhoods?
Well, I mean, they needed to see it 2 years ago when we first started to lose them. So, I mean, absolutely, it is what the president wakes up every morning concerned about. It is, you know, what he has for the last several months been pushing us to say, what are the options? What can we do more to make sure that people get back to work? We're starting to see some of that. Today he's going to sign a bill extending unemployment insurance, extending some tax breaks for businesses so that they can invest again. All of that is important. Last week he had a small business initiative to try to get lending flowing again to small businesses. All of those are, you know, active things that we can be doing to try to turn these numbers around faster.
Are there other options on the table that you discussed with the president, that you discussed with your team, that you might do going forward if we continue to see this unemployment rate grow?
I mean, the president has, as I said, been pushing us to be thinking about this. Absolutely. We're thinking of everything from, you know, more infrastructure to tax incentives for employment to what could we do to state governments, what could we do to spur the transition to a clean energy economy. Those are all things we're hearing coming out of Congress. They're all things that good public policy says we need to be analyzing very carefully. The president wants to know, what are the range of options?
And of course, we get these numbers for unemployment. We also get these big numbers coming out of banks, coming out of Wall Street for the amount of profits that they're making. So how does your average person try to branch that disconnect there?
I think the main thing is to keep their eye on what the president is doing, because he is right where all of those people on Main Street are, is where we see, what can we do to get businesses functioning again? What can we do to get banks lending again? You know, that was a big part last week when the president was saying, can we do things to help the small and community banks have more funds so that they can do more lending? And I think that is crucial.
And finally, a lot of talk about financial regulation. The president has been pushing hard for this. Do we think we're going to get this by the end of the year? Is it going to be as comprehensive as it needs to be to make sure that we don't end up in a situation like this again?
Well, you certainly get the motivation, which is, the president has said, as important as healthcare is, as important as it is to get the economy growing again, we can't leave financial regulatory reform behind, because we need to use this terrible experience that we've been through to motivate us to make the changes that make sure we don't have to go through this again. So we're absolutely confident we will get the legislation, that it will be good legislation, and we are working very hard on that.
Concerned, though, that it's going to be watered down from what you and the president have been asking for?
I think we are going to do everything humanly possible to make sure that it isn't, that it is a plan that protects American consumers, the whole American economy.
Thanks. Dr. Christina Romer, I'm Julie Pace for the Associated Press at the White House. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.